Present council members Yeager, Schilling, Luger, Mayor Iverson. Please note that council member Onstead will be participating in the meeting remotely from a hotel room at 3555 South Ocean Drive, Hollywood, Florida. That is open to the public? Okay. The City of Wyoming has posted the notice about Council Onstead's remote participation per state statute 13D- .02, Councilmember Onstead has posted at his location that he is participating in the regularly scheduled meeting of the Wyoming City Council at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, and he is actively participating in the Eastern Standard Time at approximately 8:01 p.m. With that, if we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by veteran and member Schilling.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next on our agenda is the open forum. It's an opportunity for members of the public to address the City Council on items that are on or are not on the current agenda. Either requiring council action may be deferred. Items requiring council action may be deferred to staff or boards and commissions for research and future council agendas if appropriate. You will be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask that you conduct yourself in a professional, courteous manner and refrain from the use of profanity. Failure to abide by this policy may result in the loss of your privilege to speak. Do we have anyone here tonight that's speaking in open forum? We do not. We'll move on to number 1 on our agenda. Number 1 is to consider approving the minutes of the regular meeting of the Wyoming, Minnesota City Council for November 16th, 2021. If there are no comments or questions, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by member Luger. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from member Schilling. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Did you get member Onstead? Okay. Number 2 on our agenda, consider approving the minutes of the special meeting of the Wyoming, Minnesota City Council for November 17th, 2021. If there are no comments or questions, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by member Schilling. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by member Onstead? Okay, by member Onstead. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Thanks for that, member Onstead. That helps with the hand. Thank you. All right. First thing on our agenda is the presentation of our financial. So, Mr. Linwood, are you starting with that, or how are we starting?
We actually have our representative from our finance director. We have Victoria Holthaus here from Mabdowak and Meyer. She will be discussing tonight do a TNT presentation for the council. So with that, I will have that presentation come up here, and I will let Ms. Holthaus take us away.
All right, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Administrator Linwood, Mayor and Council. Pleasure to be with you this evening. I was just speaking before the meeting. I think this might be my 3rd TNT meeting visiting with the City Council, so it's always a pleasure to be here. So tonight, of course, I'm going to walk you through the Truth in Taxation presentation prior to you opening up for public comment on the 2022 budget. But before I kind of kick things off here, I just want to kind of acknowledge all of the thought and preparation that has gone into this process leading up to this evening's Truth in Taxation hearing. Of course, starting with the city's long-term planning process that kind of evolved over the summer.
Move it over.
Here we go. How about this? Is this a little better? Okay. I have a soft speaking voice until I get the microphone in front. So leading up to the preliminary budget adoption, which took place in September, and of course tonight with the final 2022 budget being considered for approval. And Rob, if you could go ahead and advance the slides. So tonight we're going to focus in on 2 areas. Of course, the property tax levy that we're proposing to certify for taxes payable in 2022, as well as take a look at some overall highlights with regard to the city's general fund. So beginning with tax levies, go ahead. The city's property tax levy comprises more than the general fund, of course. The general fund is the city's largest service fund, and what I mean by that is, most of the functions that take place and are accounted for in the general fund are primarily services, public safety, parks and recreation, things of that nature, as opposed to the city's enterprise funds or utilities, which we charge for services that are tangible sort of things that are being offered, like water and sewer, provision of water and sewer. So beyond the city's general fund levy, we of course have the EDA levy. We've got a few categories of capital levies, as well as the debt levies on all of the city's outstanding bond issues. So in terms of the property tax levy that we are considering for 2022, it is a 7.85% increase from the taxes in 2021. And there's a couple key factors that play into that. We have our normal operating budget increases, which the general fund increase is set at 3%. But the larger areas are really revolving around the city's long-term planning efforts in terms of those capital equipment levies and the implementation of that street infrastructure levy. We know that a lot of thought and consideration goes into that, and the city's looking to get to more of a pay-as-you-go sort of method with capital improvements, which will help in terms of not having to look for outside funding as you move into the future with your long-term plan. The unique and great part about it is that $349,000 increase in the property tax levy was also offset by a $388,000 growth in the city's tax capacity. So even though when we look at it from a percentage standpoint, the levy did increase by 7.85%, because we had that growth in tax capacity, the number that we tend to look at and advise our clients to focus in on is that city tax rate. And so the city's tax rate really only then grew from 43.3% to 45%. So this year in particular, especially as it relates to residential home values, there's quite a bit of variety going on. We've all seen and heard about what's happening with residential real estate sales prices, right? So there's going to be a lot of fluctuations from one property to another in terms of how the city's levy impacts because of how their valuation is changing. But we have a couple illustrations here to just kind of show you how the 22 property tax levy could impact some homes at various levels. So a residential property that's valued at $100,000 may experience a $12 adjustment in their overall property tax bill. And I want to focus in here to just call out that we are really only talking about the city portion of the property tax bill tonight. This wouldn't include any changes to school or county levy components. Whereas a residential property that's valued at $400,000 could see approximately a $68 increase in their city property tax bill. Now, this illustration assumes no change in market value, and when the city administrator advances the slide for me, you'll see what that looks like then when we factor in a 7% change in market value. So you can see those proposed impacts on properties will grow slightly then, ranging between $35 and $193, just depending on the value of the home.
And Victoria, the value of the home basically comes from the county, correct?
That is correct.
And so these are numbers that you received from the county that approximately they may go up 7%?
Those valuations take place or are finalized in the summer. And we think on average, based on what we've seen for the city of Wyoming, that the majority of homes will see about a 7% market value adjustment. Some will be more, some will be less.
Thank you.
And so just kind of focusing, you can go ahead and advance one more slide, thank you. So again, just kind of focusing in then on the city's largest service fund or operating fund, which is the general fund. This chart just kind of illustrates some of the impacts that we're going to see in the operating budget for the general fund for 2022. Of course, on the property tax end of things, being primarily a service district and not having user fees like we do in the utility funds, property tax revenue is the primary support for general fund operations. But the other category that's changing significantly is that other taxes category, and that all revolves around the Polaris tax abatement falling off. And so we're seeing a reduction in the 2022 budget related to that. Can go ahead and advance one more slide. And then on the expenditure side of things, a couple of different noteworthy categories. In that financial administration category, that's where we see the output of the tax abatement. So because that's falling off, we have a significant decrease in that budget. In the city clerk's office, we had a 5% increase as a result of the CW Technologies contract. We added $8,500 for the Civic Plus contract, and then we had wage and benefit changes of about $16,000. We did, of course, have to budget for the election in 2022, so that's another significant change in the general fund budget. In the police department, we had the addition of the crime analyst position. Overall wage and benefit adjustments of about $68,000 in that department. And then we did see some decreases and were able to offset some of our costs with regard to health insurance. And then finally, in the highway, streets, and roads category, some adjustments to wage and benefits, and overall some adjustments to work comp and a couple other small areas in that department as well. In parks, we did adjust contracted services by about $10,000 and added some provisions for seasonal activities to the tune of about $1,000. So moving ahead then, is just a nice visual illustration that kind of speaks to, again, I've probably overused that word this evening, but just the different provisions of services that we account for in the general fund. Of course, with public safety being a top priority within our general fund, highway, streets, and roads following second, and of course some of our other just general administrative functions, as well as park and recreation. And so with that, I'll just kind of open it up to the City Council for any questions that you'd have for me before you take public comment.
Okay, sounds great. We'll start with Member Yeager.
No questions.
Member Schilling?
No questions at this time.
Member Luker?
No questions either.
Okay. I just want, just a couple questions. 50.5% for public safety, pretty average?
Say it one more time, Mayor.
The 50.5% of our budget going into public safety, very average?
It is quite common, yes.
Okay.
The provision of public safety is the #1 expenditure in all of the communities that I work with, so.
Great. And then there's an increase in the 2009 A bond. What does that, can you explain that? Because a lot of us.
If you want to flip back to the tax levy slide just for an illustration. Wonderful question, Mayor. So as part of the long-term planning process that we conducted for the city earlier this year, we also worked in a debt management analysis as a part of that. And so what we do with the debt management analysis is we cash flow out all of the city's bond issues to determine whether or not the projections that were anticipated at the time the bonds sold are really what is playing out and coming to be true in terms of, are we receiving all the special assessment revenue we anticipated? You know, how are cash flows overall looking? And so as a part of that evaluation, it was determined that some additional resources were needed to cover that debt service, perhaps because, you know, special assessment revenue didn't come out to be the way it was originally anticipated, which is quite common. And so that is to really kind of level up what the need is with the debt service requirement.
Okay, great, thank you. And then I just kind of wanted to point out a little bit, some questions that I get is the increase in our workman's comp and general liability fund. So, or insurance, and I get asked quite a bit, like, do we go out and get bids on it? And are we confident that the League of Minnesota Cities offers the best rate possible? So if you can maybe speak to that.
Sure, Mayor. I can field that one, and I think that's an excellent question. So, all of the city municipalities do utilize the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust. That is a significant value to our cities, as a private insurer could not offer the type of rates that we receive through that. But you are right, there has been some significant increases in our workman's comp and property and liability this year. Our workman's comp went up almost, we're anticipating that going up almost 20%. We're anticipating in our liability that raising about 9%, or excuse me, our automotive liability about 9%. So mainly that workers' comp, though, is really something that the league has continued to see, and a lot of that due to some of the public safety issues that we're seeing in regards to PTSD claims and different things like that. So that is something that unfortunately is that is our lone option for that insurance, but I can assure the council, and for that is why every other city utilizes them, because there is really no other better option through that. It was before the league instituted that insurance trust, that was one thing that could be a significant cost to city, was that insurance. It's expensive now, but it was even worse prior to that that creation of that League of Minnesota Cities Trust.
Okay, thank you. And I have one more question, and that would be, actually two, sorry. Two, the street replacement fund, again, I get questions on that, and that's something that is new. And the reason why we're doing that, and maybe you can explain why we need to do that, because that can be very confusing as well.
And I can start, and maybe Ms. Hothaus can explain that a little bit, but that's been a long discussion as the council has gone through that long-term plan. Previously, all of our street work we had done with the purchase of general obligation bonds for those projects. At this point in time, as we've gone through in our financial operations management has analyzed that, we've noticed that our debt levy keeps increasing. We're unable to keep that same pace of keep just doing street projects and bonding for them. So when we created that long-term plan, it was really, we provided the council different options as far as to look at different financing options, as Ms. Halthas talked about, as a more of a pay-as-you-go option, and something that we're trying to transition to the city, because we just don't have the ability to continue to keep bonding. So that is a significant increase this year. That street replacement fund, it makes up a significant portion of the increase in our levy overall, but I think through the budget work sessions we had in the council looked at that was a starting point for this, and we'll continue to evaluate that year by year as we do our budget process and look at that long-term plan and look at that 5-year CIP project for those street projects, and to try to do analysis on that and really make sure where we're at and how fast we can continue that pace. This council's been extremely aggressive with street projects. We've done a street project every year for approximately the last 8 years. We've repaired and done street reconstruction projects and about our reclamations to about a quarter of all the city streets, which is an aggressive pace. But to be able to continue to maintenance those city streets and then obviously do future ones, because we know we have streets that are still in disrepair, that's something that the council has prioritized. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add. Okay.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate that. And then with that being said, I had another question, but we'll go to a different one with that. Okay, so with that being said, we've been doing this for 8 years. Before 2015, we really hadn't replaced any roads, correct?
13 and 14 were the first.
For-
I think we did Greenway. Help me. I think we did Greenway Avenue or Fallbrook Avenue maybe in 13 and Greenway in 14. Was that correct? Correct.
Okay, and if I remember correctly, we've done 17 miles of road and we have 68 miles within the city?
Approximately correct. Yes.
Am I? Okay, good. Good
Yes.
memory on that.
Yes.
Okay, so if we continued to bond for all of the rest of the roads, our credit rating would take a hit as well, correct? Is that how that works, like a
It
regular?
can. When we do, Moody's right now, they rate the city's a credit rating, and that debt ratio, last time we did a credit call, or a call rating for the city, that was one thing that was noted. It didn't really impact us at that point in time on that rating call, but it was something noted that in future it could if we continued down that path.
Yeah, so that's why we kind of wanted to do pay-as-you-go. Okay, and then my last question would be into that same vein. We did increase our maintenance for roads by $77,000. And with the 17 miles of road that we have gotten done, we do have to take care of that investment. So is that where we're seeing that increase, is because of that, doing those roads, and that's where that bill comes
That
from?
is another increase this year. In the past, we had always levied $100,000 for that street maintenance, and that would include the resurfacing products that we use, whether it's replay or whether it's crack sealing. And Mr. Almgil, our Public Works Superintendent, working with our engineering department really looked at that and did an analysis of what it was going to be necessary, not only obviously as we replace these roads, but to be able to take care of them appropriately to ensure that they are going to last a full duration of life. And obviously, if we put more money into those in the front end, you're going to have that longevity, and it really is going to be impactful as we continue to repair those roads because we want to make them last. So that was the analysis that they did, that was to really do them appropriately and properly and to keep up the maintenance, that it wasn't that needed addition as far as that maintenance project or those maintenance projects.
Okay, quick math from anybody at that table. How many millions of dollars have we put into our roads in the last 8 years?
Mr. Erickson, I would guess probably around
Mark, I'm really gonna.
20 million, that would approximately.
Yeah, I would say probably a little over that, probably, yeah.
Little over 20
Just-
million?
That's a really, like a,
I know, I really cut you off
yeah.
guard on that, sorry.
Yeah.
But- Yeah, approximately that. So that's a big investment that we need to take care of, so. Okay, all right, so that is all of my questions. So what we'll do from there is, we'll go to number 3. And then I'll ask for going into no, we need to go into public hearing first, so.
Madam Mayor, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure we check with Councilor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Member Onstad, hello. Do you have any questions?
I have 2 questions, and they're more for clarification. The increase in the property tax level indicated on page 3, that's per year, is that correct?
That is the increase that property taxpayers could expect to see for 2022, when you compare 2021 to 2022.
Okay, and then the other question was, I believe it's on page 4, it appears that the city of Wyoming tax rate is still lower than what it was in 2019. Is that true?
We have a great graphical illustration in the memo, I'm just gonna pull it up, but it has been falling for the last several years, so I do believe you are correct on that, I'm just gonna pull it up really quick. He was referencing 2018, correct?
Correct.
17, 18, 35.76, yes.
Thank you very much. That's the only questions I have.
All right. Thank you, Member Onstad. I won't forget you again, I promise.
It's okay.
All right. Okay, so with that, we do need a motion to go into a public hearing. So do I have a first?
So moved.
So moved by Member Schilling. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Luker. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are now in public hearing. So if you'd like to come up to speak to anything in that presentation, any questions you might have, please come up to the podium, state your name, and what questions you might have. No questions? Wow, good job. So you did a great job. All right, we'll go, so I need to come out of public hearing then, right? Okay, so now we need to make a motion to come out of the public hearing, and I will make the first motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Luker. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are now out of public hearing. Number 3, to consider Resolution 21-12-117, a resolution certifying the 2021 tax levy collectible in 2022. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Member Schilling makes the first. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Luker. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
So approved. Number 4, to consider Resolution 21-12-118, a resolution approving the proposed 2022 expenditure budget by department. Do we want to have any discussion on that? Because, I mean, we kind of went over it.
It'd be a recap of a presentation that was
Okay.
gave in regards to those expenditures, unless
Okay.
council, if there's anything.
Any questions on that?
I have no questions,
Okay.
actually.
Brett, any questions on that? Nope, okay. So we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
So moved first by Member Schilling. Do we have a second? Second by Member Onstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
So approved. We'll be moving on to our consent agenda, which is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. I would like to pull number 14, 15, and 16, and I would like to pull 18, but I think I'll
pull 18.
You'll pull 18?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so we will need a motion to approve 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 17. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by member Schilling. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by member Luger. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So approved. All right, let's, number 14, which is a resolution approving payment to the Minnesota-Wisconsin Playground for the purchase and installation of playground equipment at Swenson Park. Mr. Linwood, could you explain Swenson Park and why we're doing it the way we're doing and the upgrades that we had made?
Sure.
And
Absolutely happy to, and we'll have, most likely on the 21st, we'll have some more information for council as we're coming close to the completion of that project. For the members of the public, Swenson Park was a project that we started this year that was Minnesota DNR grant. So the project was approximately $332,000, but we were able to receive a grant from the DNR for matching funds for approximately $166,000 of that project cost. We've been continuing to go through that. There has been work done to make that actually our first ADA compliant park. There has been concrete work done. There's been replacement of playground equipment. We've had resurfacing of ball courts. We've had concrete pathways put, and then access to not only our warming house and pleasure rinks and hockey rinks that allows for ADA accessibility, doorways within that warming house. And then most, I think, exciting to many is the upgraded hockey boards at the hockey rink. We had hockey boards that were originally purchased on a grant approximately 30 years ago, and they were wood, and they had seen better days and were at the end of life. So this came at a great time. We were now fortunate enough to apply and get this grant to help with the cost of this, as those hockey boards are a significant expenditure. So those boards luckily came in here about 3 weeks ago. They were trapped on a cargo ship. We're happy to say that they have been installed now. And mainly, other than just a few things, I know Public Works was waiting for the new rubber mats for the inside of the warming house, and I believe Mr. Olmsted, those came in today. So we're close on that. So I know last night we talked at the Park Advisory Commission about the potential of having a ribbon cutting in January sometime, just to open that park, and just since it is obviously it turned out, I think, very nicely. I think if you haven't had an opportunity to look at it, please do so. And also exciting that it is our first completely ADA compliant park. So we have a couple different payments on there tonight for this, but it is nearly complete, so it's exciting. And we were a little worried that it wouldn't get done this year, but looking
we're
good.
excited about that. And so we pay it and then we get reimbursed, right, from the grant? Is
Correct.
that how
You
that
are
works?
correct. So the city approves the expenditure, and then
Yeah.
once approved by the city council, we send them some paperwork with an application and the resolution, and then we receive those dollars back.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And they're pretty fast on that.
They're,
It's state.
it's actually a very
Right.
efficient process.
Yeah.
We've been very happy
Awesome.
with it.
Awesome. All right, and number 17 is the purchase of water meters. So Mr. Almgeld, I'm hoping you can explain why it's important to purchase new water meters. Why do they not last for like 50 years?
Thank you, Mayor. The water meters are, average lifespan is about between 20 and 25 years. And the current meters we have do not, you can't read them from the city hall. And so we're in the process of changing out all of our meters. We did the commercial meters first, a large number of them, because that's where you get the most revenue out of the new meters. Then we place one large order a year because they give you a discount on the purchase price of each meter. And so for this year, we're gonna do $25,000 that's left in the budget out of the 50. But we did do 22 commercial meters this year so far, and it working great too. With Jenny, just loves it. So.
Great, and we tend to make up some revenue, right? Those old meters weren't
Correct.
catching, so it does tend to pay for that. Okay, thank you. And then number 16 is payment for Forest Lake contracting. Mr. Erickson, what I'd like to talk about on that one is we know that there are still some issues. I shouldn't say issues, but there are some things that are left to be done, right?
Correct.
I want to make sure that until those are taken care of, right? My understanding is we do not pay them completely, right? There's a certain amount we hold back for that payment. So can you explain that a little bit more to make sure that we're getting this taken care of properly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. That is very true, and you'll probably recognize the last number of projects, right? We've had construction starts that were relatively late in the season, and we did not complete those projects in their entirety. There were punch list items that had carried through into the following season. And I'll just go back one step, and even the 2020 project is not yet closed out, right? And so we're still holding what we call retainage. We don't pay the contractor the full value of the work that they've completed. We have other measures in place that ensure the completion of the project. We have a performance bond. There's also permitting, NPDS permitting that's in place. That is the case for the 2021 project as well. We're all familiar with the project that got a little bit later start this year due to some other projects that were occurring within the community, most notably the Highway 61 project and our trunk sanitary sewer improvement project. And there's importance to allow the flow of traffic in some of our roads and not have them all cluttered at the same time. So we did have a later start on this project, and the contractor, for the most part, has met substantial completion. There are punch list items that do remain that the contractor will be responsible for. Drainage in one area, restoration in most of the areas where we just don't have adequate restoration, vegetation growth yet. And so we don't close out a contract until all those things have been met. And so that'll be the case with this project as well. We've made payment, but we have not made payment in full. There's retainage, as I mentioned. We do have performance bonds. And so this is pretty standard that there will be some carryover work into next construction season that will be rectified. And we do have a very good contractor and have not had any problems with them at all. So
Great.
don't expect
And
any issues.
does the contractor put that, I don't want to say first, but on a priority level before they move on to other projects? Or how does that work in terms of making sure that that gets done?
Yeah, and so there will be some teeth to our correspondence with them with some contractual requirements. So that will be a priority in the spring for them to restore those areas and make some minor punch list items a priority. So yes, that will be right away in the spring as weather allows. There's road restrictions and things, so it might not be as soon as the snow is gone.
Yep.
But there will be, at their earliest opportunity, as soon as we allow them to, they'll be in there and completing that work.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And number 18 is to consider the resignation of Paul Hoppy as Public Safety Director for the City of Wyoming, effective January 3rd, 2021. Member Schilling, your questions, comments?
It's just a comment. I would just like to say, being on this council and other boards, I've worked with you over the last 12, 13 years. It's been a real pleasure. You do so many good things for our community. You're well recognized throughout the Twin Cities, other forces, other departments. I was not happy to see you take this move, but I understand how life goes, and I think we are in good hands with our new selection. And most of all, I just, I thank you. I've always valued your opinion. You're so professional. You have always had that ability to handle every situation that's been presented to our department, your staff, and I just really, truly appreciate everything you've done for us as a community. You will be missed greatly. Yeah.
I'm saving my comments for last. All right, anybody else?
I echo all of that and would like to hear your comments.
Should be interesting, right? All right, so with that, we are going to need to approve number 14, 15, 16, and we do have to approve 18 as well. So, since I made the motion to pull some of these out, I will make the first motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we'll go second member Onstad. There's a little delay in there. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It does pass. Okay. Chief Hoppy's over there doing the happy dance. I can just see it now. Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to receipts of reports of officers, boards, commissions, and department heads. So that would be number 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. I would actually like to pull number 19 for further discussion. Does anybody else wish to pull any other communication? No? All right. So Chief Hoppy, this may be the last time that I get to ask you to pull a report and discuss. So if you could help me understand exactly what that report is and why it's important.
All right, I am trying to get down to it here in a minute just so I don't misquote it as best as possible. Earlier in the year, maybe several months ago, there was a report that came out through the city of Rogers that indicated that our crime clearance rate was at 20%. And that data was reported by the city of Rogers from the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension crime statistics that comes out every year. That's an extremely low number. And so when it was brought to my attention by a couple of sources, including Councilmember Yeager, I tasked our crime analysts, because that's what we have them for, is to dive into the analytics and tell me why it was reporting a 20% clearance rate. And so we did that over the last 60 days. Our crime analyst, myself, worked hand in hand to really dive into the analytics to determine why that number was driven and how it was driven and why it was reporting what it was, because it was traditionally significantly normal than when we would normally see in our closure rates. And so, you know, we had some theories as to why that would be the way it would, and most of those theories actually panned out as when we dove into the data. So part of the data analysis and looking at the root cause of why it was reporting what it was, we looked at every single call that we had, so right around, give or take, 24,000 calls over the last 2 years to determine why that was reporting the way it was. A couple things that we noted in that analytics drive for a couple of reasons. Mid-2020, about August, we switched from what's called MOC reporting, which is how we report crime stats to the state of Minnesota that makes it into that crime report. And we switched over to the new system, which is called NIBRS, National Incident-Based Reporting System. And so we had a completely change of not only the process of reporting, but the technology of how it reports, and a retrain of the officers who were all required to go to state training on what the new NIBRS reporting system is and how it reports, because it's very different than our traditional MOC recording. And so in this analysis, we found that we had some what we call operator error, where some of the reports weren't properly classified. And so we made those corrections in the system and then retrained our staff how to properly classify. And part of that reclassification issue is some of the old classifications that were allowed for clearance rates were no longer allowable. And so our staff had to figure out, you know, how do we clear what was normally clearable through an unfounded or some other disposition to now what's only allowable dispositions under the new NIBRS system. So, you know, we own some of that error just from a transition of process and definition. And so we pre-trained, implemented, and now as a result, we're retraining the staff to make those correction errors. So those have all gone back and corrected those error reports. The second thing that we found in the system was that there's 3 different ways to clear by arrest. One is we physically take somebody to jail. 2 is we charge them through a formal complaint process, which means the reports go up to the county attorney's office. The county attorney's office has to do their paperwork, file it with the court system. The court sends them back to me. I sign the formal complaints, and then they're technically arrested. And the third component is through an issuance of a citation. So those would be the 3 elements of an arrest, all which report differently. And there are some problems with that, and we'll talk about each one individually. First, what we found was with 2020, the court systems essentially shut down. People weren't being processed through courts. The county attorney's offices, you know, delayed what would normally be a much more expedited process for charging people was essentially halted because of the court systems. And secondly, the jails shut down, meaning that they were only taking the worst of the worst violent criminals. Otherwise, they weren't accepting normal arrestees that we would otherwise book into jail, which then forced a number of our normal arrest procedures onto citations. What we found through this is that we are reporting our citation dispositions to the state of Minnesota, but they have an error in their system which is not converting those citation dispositions to clearance rates. And so what we see is a trifecta happening where the prosecution and the court system shuts down. We can't take people to jail, so we force a number of our otherwise arrestable people into citations for the misdemeanor offenses. And then those dispositions aren't properly recording on a state basis they haven't quite figured out how to convert those over to crime dispositions, therefore it reduces our clearance rate in that component of it. When we look at how and when it's reported, we have to have all of our crime stats for the previous year reported by the end of January. So for instance, if we have crimes that we have people identified and we have reports that have been filed with the county attorney's office and we file those reports for review and charging, if those charges aren't signed off by January 31st of the following year, those crime stats are never reported to the BCA as a clearance rate. So any cases that we had pending from 2020 into 2021 would not be reported as cleared crimes, even though we have identified suspects and sent the paperwork up. In fact, a number of those cases, since the courts have been opened, have been processed and charged, but those charges won't ever report to the crime stats because it's past the deadline date, which is another effect, so we have kind of this trifecta thing that happened in 2020 from the court systems being shut down, from the jails being shut down, to delayed charges for the people we have identified and arrested being reported being processed post-reporting deadline. All of that would drive those statistics downward. So as a result, like I said, we went through and manually looked at every single case that we have in that date frame for the last 24 months, just to kind of identify any errors that we find and correct any system problems that we had, and then reported it back to you guys as what was our actual clearance rate and what was it in comparison for the last 4 years to really validate, is the data right or is it wrong? So really complex analysis looking at root cause. In 2017, our clearance rate, 91%, in 18, 89%, in 19, 87%, and in 2020, 76%. So with that, reanalysis and looking at the raw data as it is as of last, the start of this month, I would say that the information that we're reporting is consistent. The average state clearance rate, over the same period of time, if we look at that, 47, 48, 46, and 37% collectively. So we're still considerably, a good 30 to 40% higher than the state average for clearance rates when I look at the raw data as it's reported. And one other anomaly that we found is not only did our crime stats as a whole drop in 2020, because I think we all saw the effect of people just purely not going outside and a lot of different things, we actually saw a reduction in our number of crimes reported as a whole, not only for us, but statewide. But I anticipate that we will probably see something different in 2021. And I can't even say that, where we are in the court systems and the processing of cases in 2019, 2021, that we'll even see accurate data being pushed by January of 2022 for 21. So I'm going to say that it's unsure what those numbers will look like from a reporting perspective, because we're still seeing that 12 to 14 month delay in the court systems as we try to catch up from basically a full year of the court systems being shut down.
Okay.
So I assume that they'll report better, but I don't know if I would still consider that to be reliable data as it reports into the crime stats, because we know the state hasn't fixed their citation dispositions, and we know that the criminal justice system has not caught up to the backlog of cases that's out there. True?
Okay.
Okay.
2 questions. What paper was that in again?
It was in it was originally reported by Star Tribune out of a annual report done by Rogers, Minnesota, where they used our crime statistics from the Uniform Crime Report as a comparison to their agency.
Really? Okay. And what is tell me the reason why it's important to clear those out. I mean, I kind of have an idea, but,
So our clearance rates demonstrates, is the rate of clearance means the rate of arrest or charge or holding people accountable compared to the number of cases reported or investigated. So in our particular case, last year, 76% of all the crimes reported to us, we effectively arrested or charged somebody for. We cleared those cases either through a charging, meaning they resulted in a charge or an arrest, or we exceptionally cleared them because we could not charge them out of some circumstances that was beyond our control. And a couple examples of that is if an individual dies prior to charging, we can't charge them because they're not alive anymore. And the other one that we see a significant impact from also, and we can take this into consideration as to why we may see a 80% or 80 to 90% reduction compared to a 76 in 2020 when we start looking at bail reform and some of the other hot topics in criminal justice or social criminal justice currently, is that if the county attorney determines not to prosecute or they decline prosecution for any case for any reason other than probable cause, then that goes as a clearance rate is exceptionally cleared because it's outside of our control. So a number of things that are happening around the criminal justice system as a whole, as it relates to COVID, as it relates to criminal justice, social criminal justice in today's world, the last 24 months, that's really affecting kind of how and some of our crime stats right now. And I think it'll take a year or two before that really starts to normalize again.
I'd like to see that report, so I'll have to.
Well, I'm sure, Chief Bauer will be more than happy to dive into
Awesome.
that. I
Yeah.
know he's probably watching today, so
I would
we
definitely.
can task him with that for next
I'd
year.
like to see that. I'll ask council, I'll start with Member Onstad. Do you have any questions regarding that report? Okay, Member Yeager?
No questions.
Member Schilling?
No questions.
Member Luker?
Just one quick question. Did the 20% sort of ballpark figure, was that kind of across the board with cities in Minnesota?
No, it was not. We saw a number of cities that saw a drastic drop in it and some that did not. I think if you were to look consistently across it, like which ones were affected more than others, some of it will have to do with the court systems and the counties that they reside in. Some court systems shut down more quickly than others. Depending, I think the rural ones stayed open a little longer, processed longer than maybe the urban ones. But I think the other piece too is when people went live on the NIBRS system and when they didn't, because not all departments transitioned. We were one of the earlier ones to transition because we were one of the departments that helped build the interface for reporting NIBRS to the state for our vendor. And so it all will depend on, some will have that issue in 2021 reports because they're now transitioning in 21 to NIBRS where we did mid-year 2020. So I can't, so you'll look at that report and you'll see some had more of a drastic drop than others, but there's still, geopolitical issues that are attached to that, plus interface transition times that maybe affect that as well.
Okay, thank you.
So it was a really complex dive, and that's why it took us 60 days to get back to,
Yep.
because we wanted to be, very thorough in what we did and thoughtful about the data we pulled that it was accurate.
My guess is they didn't do their due diligence and see that there's this anomaly and then call us or the other cities and try to figure out what went on.
It was a great question posed by one of our council members originally, so I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see it originally,
Yeah.
but I thought it was a really good, because we did identify some issues, both, inside our controls and outside our controls, that we have since addressed.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. All right, we're going to move along to number 24, communications, retirement send-off for Public Safety Director Hoppy, December 22nd, 2021, City Hall, 5 to 7 p.m. Mr. Linwood, are you going to
Sure, I
discuss
can
this?
speak briefly, Mayor, members of the council. Appropriate, as you all know, we accepted the resignation for Public Safety Director Hoppy, but we'd like to have just a small send-off for the community. We'll advertise, we have a flyer in your council packet, so we'll make sure to advertise that and allow people, members of the community or staff, council members, boards, commissions to come and wish him well on his next chapter in whatever he may see in front of himself. So like I said, just a small, here at City Hall, we'll probably try to get some coffee and a cake and just have an opportunity for people to say bye and give them some good wishes.
All right, well, that's super exciting. I have it on my calendar. So, all right, we don't need an improvement of that. So with that, we are going to go to council reports, and we'll start with Member Luker.
I attended the Park Advisory Commission meeting last night, as well as the tree lighting ceremony, which was a great turnout. And just a huge thank you to all the community businesses and organizations that pitched in, as well as city staff, Public Works, and Public Safety for really making it a great event.
Thank you. Member Yeager.
I attended the budget work session and the tree lighting ceremony, and thank you all for coming, and thank you all for watching.
Thank you. Member Schilling.
I attended the budget work session. I heard a lot of great feedback from the tree lighting, as always, from my friends and neighbors. I'd like to especially thank Public Works. I know you guys worked really hard on setting all of that up, and obviously the businesses that contributed, and thank you all for coming in tonight.
Okay, thank you. I attended the budget workshop. I attended the Park Advisory Commission. I also attended the tree lighting. For those of you who see me go live, just totally blocked that out. It was not good, but the tree lighting ceremony that we did was good. So in the morning, I was Facebook Live with Santa. So with that, I would like to publicly thank you, WSB Engineering, for supporting Xcel Energy, Big Apple Bagel, Pine Haven Farms, Janine Sachs for her wonderful popcorn, Sunrise Apple Farm, and then, of course, our staff, because every year it just gets bigger and better. I would also like to thank the fire department and for driving Santa around. It is such an exciting time. And also to our residents who, I believe, Jesse, you're sitting in the back. I believe you had to drop off 3 or 4 times for the toys.
Yep, yeah, we had to empty out our apparatus about 3 or 4 times.
That's amazing. It's probably the most we've had, so that's great. I do have to say this, the challenge for the food shelf, Wyoming did not win that. Thanks, Chief Hoppy, for allowing others to win. So, so what was it, 4,000 pounds?
We actually, collectively, it was 5,300 pounds, so 2.5 tons, which we did 2,000 ourselves last year, so throwing that challenge out, was really to drive that quantity as a whole. So the real winners was the food shelf and, those people who will need a little extra help this holiday season. So those are the real winners.
Yeah, I just love that you did that countywide. That was awesome. So, all right, and then last, but it will never be least, is the retirement for you. I would like to thank you for the positive impact that you have had on our community. And if 13 was really a lucky number, then we have been extremely lucky to have you for 13 years. We look forward to celebrating you on the 22nd, and I'm sure you're not going to be any stranger to the city. So we really appreciate all that you have done for us and for the residents. So thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right.
Yeah. Councilmember Onstead for his report.
Member Onstead, I promised I wasn't going to forget you. So go ahead.
I attended the tree lighting ceremony, which keeps getting better and better every year, and so much thought was put into that. And it's nice because it's a pet-friendly event. And I had my 2 dogs there, and I saw a lot of other dogs. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so with that, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So adjourned. Thanks, Brett. Safe travels.